form where it's untainted by your personal consideration.
I get that. That kind of makes sense. Because who knows you better than yourself? That makes sense.
Of course, that would go ahead and suggest that yourself is God. But you're not going to catch either of us arguing that.
Absolutely not. I think it's going to cut us off here in a couple minutes.
You think what?
I think it's going to cut us off here in a couple minutes.
It's going to cut us off?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it probably already did.
No. Well, just in case.
Well, yeah, it would have cut us off every 30 minutes.
It's still going.
It would clip.
All right, let's end the video. Is what I mean to say.
Well, I mean, okay, we didn't even really start the video, but
It has been over an hour, and I need to do stuff.
Okay, so what was the video about?
Oh, it was his exploration into a particular Me Too situation.
Oh, yeah, let's take a few moments here to speak to that situation, the Me Too movement. Now, I personally find this whole scenario to be very fishy. I have a hugely critical assessment of it. I think that there is, I mean, let's put it this way. You've got somebody who gets raped and or sexually assaulted in some way, 30 years ago. Now, if you got raped today, what would you do about it? I'm fairly certain you would not just let it slide.
Well, you say you as if you're talking to the audience, and I feel like different people would definitely have different reactions to a trauma like that. Absolutely.
Some people might let it slide.
You
some
can't
some people
assume
might
that
be
your own
afraid.
reaction would be the same as other people.
Why not? I'm God, remember?
But you can't assume things, so stop it.
No, I
don't.
don't assume things ever, Cheeks. I presume.
Whatever.
But
people feel differently and deal with trauma in different ways.
some people might actually let it slide. Some people might try to block it out or
It has
dismiss
been known
it.
to happen. I mean,
Yeah, that's actually one of the more common responses to such a thing, especially rape, is to try and dismiss it, to try and block it out. But, I mean, if you've been subject to some sort of sexual misconduct and you do not report it,
there should be justice for someone
there should be justice.
victimizes other people like that.
But, I mean, in the case that it comes to the factor that, and I can perfectly understand this because the same thing happens with our dealings with the initiative all the time, is that you do in fact require, not even one, but multiple persons to step up and become engaged in order for others to, for lack of better terminology, grow the balls to do it.
To have the confidence.
Yes,
to be able to do that.
To have the confidence to do it. And so, I mean, say, one lady gets assaulted in some way or another, and she doesn't say anything for, ever and ever and ever. But then later on, far later on, she decides, it's time, I guess, for whatever reason, she's ready to do it, or she feels a need to do it. Any sort of problems or events could come into play, like the person who assaulted her could, something could happen to them that just manages to touch her the wrong way, make her pissed off at him, or make her feel as though he doesn't deserve something that's happening to him. Whatever the case, she suddenly has that confidence, or has that, at the very least, reasoning, dire or desperate reasoning to step up and do something. And then, of course, justice is sought, and hopefully justice is met, because, I mean, in these cases, there are various considerations that come into play, such as, how long it's been might put a huge damper or hinder on the investigation of it.
No, it stops the investigation.
Right,
there can be no investigation unless you have pictures or like videos or something
right.
like that. After a couple days, there's no way to
right.
investigate other than eyewitness testimony and the personal accounts.
Or, any sort of viable evidence. But, I mean, that right there makes me wonder, how can this sort of thing transpire if that's the case? Like, how does a woman, for example, in the case of Bill Cosby, how does a woman step up after 15 plus years and say, well, he date raped me, and suddenly there's a trial, and,
Yeah.
like, how?
I think there's a lot of factors in play here, and you'd have to sit and examine individually the purposes and personality of each person involved in these cases. But as a general, I don't know, man. As a general thing, I think that it's making it harder to examine the more extreme cases of abuse. I think that the PR campaign and that kind of feel to it is making it more difficult to investigate and find actual instances of, really heinous acts upon people.
Right, well, I mean, for all intents and purposes, honestly, it's making it impossible. Like, if there's no evidence to be provided, it's just basically one person's word against another.
Right.
And, I mean...
That gets us nowhere. And I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that eyewitness testimony, maybe not a personal account, but an eyewitness testimony is like it's like the polygraph tests. It's inadmissible in court because they're not reliable.
Well, eyewitness testimony is not inadmissible in court, but it can be considered hearsay. In certain cases, it can be considered hearsay, and it's not exceptionally credible. That is to say,
it's not reliable.
It's circumstantial.
It's not reliable. Our memories are not that great, and they fail us sometimes, and so I don't think in an actual court of law that you can be relied upon to recount something accurately, especially after years have gone past. And so it just makes it that much harder to actually find out the truth of, things that have happened.
So, I mean, first order of business, how do we go about actually assessing this and then pressing charges against somebody after so long has passed in the first place with that individual person and that individual incident? And you know what? I'm all for it.
It's nearly impossible.
If we can manage to get that process going and make a difference with it, seek and find justice for the victim, present and execute justice upon the perpetrator, fantastic. It's the way things obviously should have been done in
a
the
perfect
first place.
world, yeah.
But then we have the case of multiple other persons deciding at this time to step up and try their hand in it, which that's where this really gets on my bad side, because
I don't think it's like motivated so much by money. I know people claim that a lot. That's kind of frustrating. I don't like it when it's usually men too.
I'm really not
like,
sure
these chicks just want money. Like, I don't know of any woman that's ever gotten some big payday from claiming that they were assaulted or raped.
I'm not sure that they do get money.
I don't think that happens. That's actually not a thing. So it frustrates me a little bit when people say that kind of stuff, but it's also frustrating that the fact is that if the first or second or third or fourth person were to, make known things that happened to them, then maybe the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 10th, and 11th person would not have been victimized in the first place.
Right. I mean, ultimately, it begs the question, really, how many people have just up and decided to do absolutely nothing about it? I mean, if you just speaking on conjecture, if you were sexually assaulted, most especially actually actively raped, just what exactly do you think it would take to convince you that you should do just fucking nothing at all about it? And
it's a little odd. I don't think I could put myself in that situation, and I certainly don't know what I would do in that situation. But I can't imagine not wanting, to make it right, some kind of justice or something like that. So it is it's a little confusing, but again, we don't know.
It's a little confusing for sure, but honestly, personally, I find it to be so very exceptionally fishy and almost entirely unbelievable. Like, how can it be the case that so very many people are assaulted in this way and none of them decide to do anything except until one person steps up and says something, and then all of a sudden all the rest of them are perfectly ready? It's like, and I know that it's not really a matter of compensation. In most cases, I don't think a lot of people are being paid for this sort of thing, but I do think that people are, willing to step up and make such fraudulent claims for the sake of publicity or, some kind of a significance applied to their life, or, maybe it affords them opportunities they were not presented before. There are myriads of reasons as to why people would go about doing something like this, but I just honestly, I can't believe, I'm sure it happens sometimes, it's perfectly legit, but in most cases, I won't say most cases, but in a lot of cases, I can say, in my opinion, I do believe that a lot of these claims are fraudulent, and the fact that they are in fact calling this a movement, it seems more like, and I'm not trying to be discriminative here, I'm certainly not, I mean, I love ladies so very much. They are my favorite sort of creatures ever. There's nothing that I care about and love and appreciate more than the human female, but it seems to me almost as though
it's like a PR campaign, and I think there are better ways to go about bringing the facts to light, that there is a lot of discrimination that has been going on for a very, very, very long time with regards to women in the society, and I think that definitely needs to be, people need to be aware of it, and it's an absolutely important thing to talk about and to be activism. I think that's fantastic. I think that's absolutely great, but the activism side of it kind of takes over a little bit, just like with any other cause or whatever. The activism culture takes over, and then it just becomes kind of a crusade, online, or it's a little. I think there are better ways to go about making that information.
And here, just to finish my thought there on what I was attempting to say right there, is that as much as I love women in general, almost all of them, unless they're like total dickheads, but I do love the human lady as much as I could possibly love anything, but I feel that it's, and please try not to take any offense to this. I'm not making any seriously, cemented, what's the word, damn, how can I lose that word? It was, accusations. I'm not trying to make any seriously cemented accusations here by any stretch. I'm just saying we do not believe in, well, coincidence means to coincide. So coincidence obviously exists. We just call it synchronicity because it means something a little more effective. But we do not believe in just random meaningless coincidences, and I find it to be very, very kind of incidental that this sort of Me Too movement should be birthing and transpiring, just as we find, extremist feminism to be on the rise and growing as it is.
Extremist anything is just not great.
Now, obviously, I'm sure we're going to run into cases of this sort at some point wherein it's not females who have been assaulted, but
absolutely.
There's going to be other cases of this nature, and
conversely, I would say that a false accusation could be maybe not equivalent, but is kind of the same as the other way around, I mean, there's absolutely young boys that have been just ruined, and women that have been attacked and ruined in such ways that I think conversely, equally, those things are terrible.
Yeah, and alternatively, conversely, in nearly the same sort of a sense, is that where it comes to launching false claims of this sort, I mean, regardless of what the verdict is, that person's life is destroyed. So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, really.
That's another argument, too, that kind of frustrates me a little bit. The money one, and then the other one where, again, it's usually men that come out and they're like, oh my god, this guy lost his job, and it's just like this fake ass concern, like you didn't care if some dude lost his job yesterday, but now you're all about it because of the cause itself and your opinion on what side are you fucking on, and then everything, and so then it becomes like this huge thing where you're like, can you believe it, this poor guy, he lost his job, oh no. And it's so funny to me that that's always like one of the go-to things for men to bring up, and it's like, if that guy got fired yesterday for sleeping at work, like you wouldn't give two shits. It's so easy to identify that kind of, fake ass fucking concern, and it's frustrating.
Okay, well, here's my response to that particular sentiment, is that a threefold response. One, what I'm saying here, what I mean to say is that launching this sort of false accusation, and especially building a following at it to where it's many people, making these accusations
on social media, no matter what the subject matter.
Yeah, it isn't just going to be a person losing their job. Their life is destroyed, their entire life. From that point forward, there is not a single person they're going to come across who isn't familiar with that story, who is not going to be questioning whether this person is a rapist or not, whether they can be trusted.
Conversely, it's no picnic, I can imagine, to walk around and have everybody, as a woman, have everybody look at you like you're some kind of poor, damaged victim all the time.
Yeah,
you know
no
what I mean?
shit,
So
of course.
Alternatively, That's also
But
not fucking cool.
at the same time, as shitty as it might come across, and as much as I don't like to have to say it, if you have in fact gone ahead and waited 15, 20 years or so to go ahead and let somebody know that this has happened to you, then you have in fact created of yourself a poor, damaged victim. I mean,
Pretty
that's just the reality of the situation.
It's
You need to stand up for yourself.
It takes a lot.
You know?
It takes a lot of courage, I can imagine, and a lot of confidence to be able to do something like that. But I can't. I would imagine that the drive and the need for justice and to balance the scales of the universe in such way would kind of take over and give you that confidence boost to be able to make
and of course,
the decision to,
of course, correct or at least appropriate timing could play into this to some degree. I mean,
it makes or breaks.
It could very well be the case that you were not, you might be a spotter, for example. You might actually be an active spotter who, has a sense for this, has an intuition in play, has a sense for spotting values, for spotting circumstances, and might very well happen to know, or at least be of the firm belief, that it is required that you step up and, take this to the courts or to the public or to whatever, make it known at a time that is more effective or more applicable or in some way just right. That could be the case. Honestly, of course, many people are not going to even understand that, let alone agree with it, but if you are a spotter, you will understand that it could very well be the case that you're waiting for synchronicity to let you know that this is the time to get it done. And where it comes to a person losing their job, no, we don't give a shit if they've lost their job, especially if they're a rapist. But then at the same time, if they have lost their job and they're actually, in effect, not a rapist and they've been falsely accused, then that person has effectively lost their life. I mean, they're going to be very hard pressed to find another job.
Oh shit! A giant plant just closed in our state down in Logan, Ohio, or whatever. Like fucking 1,200 people just up and lost their job out of nowhere. It happens all the time because Mexico is making the parts. It's a Chevy plant, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. Innocent people lose their livelihoods. And so to make a stand just because it has to do with this particular movement, as in feminism or the Me Too or whatever, and then to plant your flag in that just because of the subject matter, it seems ingenuine. I mean, it's just one of those things that I feel is to me personally is a little bit frustrating.
A little bit. It's very frustrating. It can be very frustrating. What's most frustrating about it is the concept, or the very, consideration in this regard that just ultimately we can't know. We can't know how many of these cases are true or false. We can't know what's really going on there.
We could know.
We should know.
If there is physical proof.
Right, and so I suppose,
so it's very sad.
let's say here an advisement we can give to people: invest in a measure by which to have some method of garnering proof of this sort of thing available, just in case it ever happens. Be ready, be prepared, generally speaking, for just about anything, whatever you can at least, but do in fact, get evidence if this sort of thing happens. Regardless of when you decide to step up on it, you will have that available so that you can in fact prove yourself, because it's impossible for us to judge, who's truthful and who's dishonest.
It would do society a favor as a whole, I think, if there were something to look upon to determine one way or another if something is true or not. I think that just does everybody a favor.
Right.
You know, it's a good move.
Don't let the courts, don't let the people, don't let the circumstances get over on you. For the most part, essentially, don't let it get to the point where neither party can be trusted and we have no way of telling what the fuck is going on, because that just brings us closer to furthering this problem that is
it's a mess. Yeah,
unusable.
It's a mess and it's unusable.
Anyways, Sweetie Cheeks is kicking me and grabbing at my private parts, and she's being totally cruel, and she's gonna fucking, you know.
Wah.
I'm not gonna call the police just yet. I'm gonna wait a few years before I say something.
You're
but
such a crybaby. Gosh.
eventually people are going to have no idea whatsoever as to whether you actually raped
There's
me or not.
physical evidence. We're being recorded.
Well, nobody could see that. I could be lying.
All right. Well, don't be a dickhead.
All right, so that is going to conclude our third video as a response to the what was he called?
Kind of. Let's see.
À-bas-le-ciel, and this particular video regarding the hashtag #MeToo movement. Eisel Mazard is his name. We'll do more responses on him, obviously, because we do like him, and I have every intention of pursuing him until I make contact and progress. And now that Sweetie Cheeks is with me on it, we are ensured victory to some extent. Also, this is our mutual, the both of us, our official 100 plus subscribers celebration video, which I'm going to juice up with cool shit on my phone for the original clip, and then I'm not sure what else to say at the moment. We are very much wishing you all a fantastic time of it, whatever might be happening for you. Please get to the, local authorities as quickly as is possible should you be sexually assaulted in any way, and collect that evidence. We love you guys very much. Very happy to be back with Sweetie Cheeks here, kicking ass as we should be at all times. So, love you guys. Hila Salai. Teriyuni Siari, namaste.
Good night.
Night, she says. The molester.